Council that the library here in Killarney is a magnificent venue for such an exhibition, and I'd like to thank our own staff for assisting and making this exhibition possible. I'm joined also by my colleague Owen O'Shea from Kerry County Council, a noted historian, and Gerald Shannon, who's written a biography on Liam Lynch. Let me start by saying I come from the other side of the Civil War.
Which is good.
Because at the same time I have always been fascinated by history and what it teaches us, or what it strives to teach. And what I can remember, or my perception of that time, it was a time of huge personalities, huge strong individuals, male and female, very dedicated on both sides. And yet here we are, a nation trying to come out of under the yoke of empire and to divide and conquer, and the whole diplomatic intensive type of campaigns and effort by the British government at that time to first of all intimidate, to frighten the audience. But I think if we don't learn from history, you know, it's a sad reflection of ourselves, and particularly in this time of conflict throughout the world, that we have to learn. And we as a small nation have a huge amount to contribute to other nations. We're the only nation, or we're the only modern republic, who has never colonized another country. We're the only European country who's never robbed or stolen from other peoples or other nations. Our role in the United Nations is critical, because we can stand up and say, we believe in such and such, and let people respond to that. We have no baggage from that era of empire. But the era of empire was an era of stealth, of resource robbing, and of building financial empires. And that's what makes us unique in Europe. And I think that we need to focus more on our role. So what I would like to say is that Liam Lynch, that generation, those committed people who put everything on the line, and I get the sense just from looking at some of the exhibits, like a lot more people, that he wanted the conflict to cease. He wanted maybe to revert back to a normal life where he wasn't maybe cynical of other people, or where we get when we're involved in that situation where there were splits in families and splits throughout. So it's just really my endorsement is of this is a significant piece of work. It's a very timely reminder of our own history and how volatile it can be, how we need to protect it. But also it's a call to arms to us as well. When it comes to Gaza or any other conflicts, or Ukraine, or throughout the world, we have a moral duty and obligation to stand on the shoulders of these giants and stand for liberty, freedom and...
Now, much of this exhibition refers to letters, and I'm going to begin with the story of one particular letter. In 1997, Pa Barry was going through his late father's papers in the family home of Carrickmore outside Fermoy, County Cork, and he made an extraordinary find among the documents. A find that Pa's father John had kept aside for many years, knowing full well its importance. Going back even further, in the late 1970s, John Barry had bought a chest of drawers formerly belonging to the O'Connell family, based in Cona in northeast Cork, after their home was sold. Now, worth noting, of course, the O'Connell family were an important delivery point for IRA dispatches during both the War of Independence and Civil War. And in this chest of drawers purchased by John Barry, he found a letter, one letter, dated the 1st of March 1923, from Father Tom Lynch to his older brother, General Liam Lynch, Chief of Staff of the IRA, who then was leading Republicans in arms against the forces of the Irish Free State. Father Tom, writing from Australia where he was based, began with the hope the letter would reach Liam, saying, "It looks blue that it'll ever reach you. A danger of dispatch, a danger of censor, and a danger that you maybe God knows where when it arrives. Still here it goes, and God may guide it to you." Speaking of his fears after hearing inaccurate rumours of Liam's arrest, Tom assured him, "Liam, you are putting up a great fight. Only remember the motto, no surrender, and all will be well. You have led well so far." He assured his brother, "In case of execution, you'll be able to look into the rifle barrels. Life is short. What matter a few years extra? Cathal Brew and Liam Mellows will help you in this supreme test." In closing, Tom said, "Please God, Liam, we will meet again in the old land in 10 years' time. But it doesn't matter. We will all meet hereafter. Yours is an awful life now. Terrible responsibility, but be brave, true and humble. Fight on to the last man. The nation's honour is being vindicated. God bless you in Ireland's cause and enable you to continue a rebel unchanged and unchangeable." Now this letter, sadly, never delivered to Liam Lynch, and it's the only surviving communication we have from Father Tom Lynch to his older brother. Yet even in this one letter, we see Tom's love for his elder sibling and the patriotism that they both shared. Now, General Liam Lynch, without question, was one of the most important and influential figures in the fight for Irish freedom in the early 20th century. In the words of his first biographer, Florrie O'Donoghue, Lynch was, quote, "one of the makers of history." The esteem he was held in among his comrades can be seen in the numerous memorials in the southwest to his memory, including the Memorial Tower, the Memorial Round Tower in the Knockmeal Down Mountains, the largest monument to a single individual in the period, which is an extraordinary statement from Liam Lynch's comrades. And along with this group of close comrades, Liam's brother Tom was one of the key people in the story of Liam's short life, a very important individual. Now, much of Dolores' brilliant exhibition is centred on the surviving letters that Liam wrote to Tom, written between 1917 to 1922, most of which can be viewed online in the National Library of Ireland catalogue. And these important items of correspondence, very unique, we are left with many personal impressions of Liam Lynch. We come to understand his patriotism, his commitment to the Republican cause, his religious faith, his admiration for those under his command in the Cork No. 2 Brigade, and also the ordinary people who helped them, his love of his home and the people in rural East Limerick. But most important of all, we get a sense of the close personal bond and the love between these two brothers. And Liam very clearly greatly trusted his brother's opinion and counsel. In 1921, during the truce, Liam complimented Tom on, quote, "The clear view you take of the Irish situation, you would do fairly well playing my game." Just prior to the Civil War, Liam wrote to his brother, "Your notes give me great courage to carry on even against terrible opposition, and you generally strike the individual points at issue." In fact, in 1917, Liam wrote to Tom in a private letter the phrase that we most associate with him: "We have declared for an Irish Republic and will not live under any other law." His excitement and relish of being part of this fight for Irish freedom is very evident in these early letters. 5 years later, from 1917, at the height of the Civil War, a broken-hearted Liam writes the following to Tom Lynch: "The disaster of this war is sinking to my bones when I count the loss of Irish manhood and the general horrors of civil war. Who could have dreamt all our dreams could have been so blighted?" As a priest, Tom was also a spiritual counsel for Liam. In 1920, as the War of Independence raged, Liam wrote to Tom, "Thank God that I've been the big push for the motherland. I think there could be no more sacred calling. Say a few prayers for me sometime that I might be able to do my duty to God and country." And in these letters there are also references to Liam's personal life. He makes mention of his future fiancée Bridie Keys at a Gaelic Leave dance in 1917, saying, "I am doing a great line these days, but she always keeps away at a distance at my tail. Sometimes she walks after my pals."
Think about that. So the whole story behind this exhibition was through the decade of centenaries. There were various bursaries going through Cork County Council. I came up with a plan and I approached them and I submitted a plan to say, I want to research Liam Lynch and I want to find out more about him, but I'm going to use his letters as a way of finding out more about him and his life and the people who supported him. So with that, that's why this exhibition itself is a folding exhibition. Somebody said to me, why is all the work so creased? But I said, basically, I want the work to sort of emulate the kind of notes and letters that were passed, and they were carried in women's bras and shoes, socks, hair, hidden, and they were the kind of dispatches that if you were caught with them, you were in big trouble, or whoever was connected to somebody in a dispatch would be in big trouble. The letters themselves now are digitalised and in the National Library, but there are no addresses on them. Sometimes they allude to a date and maybe a town, but where in that town? There's hundreds of houses in every town. So when I was researching in Ballyvourney, I was contacted about a local historian there, Michael Toomey, and he said, oh yeah, I know the houses around this area. So then I went off with him and we visited 5 or 6 houses in that area, and one of them was a McCarthy house down there, it's the one with the trees. No, beyond you, next to Alison. Alison, point. Yes, that one, that's you. And I went into that house, and the first thing I went in, they said, have a cup of tea, we're all having a cup of tea, and we're all having a slice of bread. And I'm in the same kitchen that Liam Lynch was over 100 years, and it's the same people looking after him. It's kind of amazing. This one is where Liam worked. It's the yard, Barry's, in Fermoy. This is the house, Mortonville House. I visited that. A different historian called Donny O'Sullivan brought me to another 5 or 6 houses around Mallow. This house was being renovated and the walls were being ripped out, and I met the electrician. I said, for God's sake, look through every corner of this house, because this is a very kind of a nice big house, and it was a house that's where Liam would have put his hat. His office was upstairs, and it's a house after a big bank raid that was done in 1919, I think, that the IRA newspaper were accused of having done the robbery. And Liam Lynch knew that they hadn't. And that really annoyed him. So through that, they said, we need to find who the people who did the robbery is, and we need to get the money back. So basically, Liam had sent out all these people to be watched. Anyone spending too much money, drinking too much, or what have you. And one by one, they picked up a few. And when one said, okay, I'll give you a name, they then could follow another name. And they found these different locations with cash. Basically, Liam gathered all the cash together, and then the cash was actually returned to the bank. The bank couldn't believe it, and the bank actually gave Liam Lynch a reward, which he said, but I'm going to use this, to buy weapons. And they said, we know, but you can use it. In the process of me researching this show, our exhibition, I found out about Gerard, who's writing a book, because somebody said, oh, there's somebody writing a book. I said, oh, very interesting. And then somebody sent me a message to say, there's actually another guy making a film. I said, who's the guy making the film? About Liam Lynch, called The Dying Days. So his name is John Foley, and at some point in Killarney, I'd like to show the film, because it was full film made, and maybe do it as a twin thing with The Dawn, which is another famous Republican film that was made in 1935 in Kerry. But I needed help to find these locations, because there's no way, they were hard to find in 1923, they're still hard to find, but when I found out about the filmmaker, I said, listen, I'm trained as a scenic painter also in theatre and film, and I said, he had a few last days to shoot. So I said, can I come to Waterford and can I be part of the team, the film crew, where I'm painting and doing a set. I said, what is the location? What is the scene? He said, it's breakfast. It's in a house. It's just before Liam Lynch heads up the mountain, where he will be shot within the next hour and a half. So they said, we're filming it in this location nearby. So I said, okay. I went to the location the day before. He said, he put me up for 2 days, went down, painted the interior of the house, made the bread for the breakfast the following morning, boiled bacon, so we'd have fresh bacon for slicing the following morning. He said, there's one woman in this scene, and she's Mrs. Houlihan, because it's Mrs. Houlihan's house. And he said, would you want to play Mrs. Houlihan? And I went, no. I said, but yes, that's very tempting. So they said, we see Mrs. Houlihan pours him his last cup of tea. So I said, okay. So we're filming and we're doing everything else. And then here comes Liam Lynch, sits down, and pours him a cup of tea. It's amazing. But, so then after that, when I worked on the film, the fella that comes running in this scene to say, Liam Lynch, you've got to go, you're surrounded on 2 sides. It was actually his grandfather that was the person, the scout on the day, that ran in the same house. But it was interesting. But then after that, John Foley said to me, okay, you gave me a dig out, you helped me with this location and some artwork. He said, what can I do for you? And I said, there's a curious letter, and I don't know where it is in Waterford. But Liam is hiding out in the house, and in the top right-hand corner where you normally have an address, he just says, somewhere in Ireland. With the idea being, well, nobody will ever get that. Do you know what I mean? It's a kind of a little tease. So I asked John, and I said, do you know where that house is? And he said, yes. And he said, and as a thank you to you, I'll bring you there. So that house is Kerwin's, which is this house. The house goes back to 1840, and the Kerwins still live there. And I visited, and I said, I'd actually really like to see where he slept, if I can go upstairs. I mean, this is all beautiful wrought iron from Pierce's Foundry. This is a really nice house. And Mary Kerwin brought me upstairs, and we came up to the top of the stairs, and the really wide landing, and she said, Liam was injured. He was recovering from a gunshot wound in the shoulder, and they needed to get him out of Cork, and he needed to recover somewhere quiet. And this house is at the end of the Cummer Mountains, and it's 1 or 2 miles of a driveway just to get to this house. So the doctor would have been coming every few days. This is a tiny community. So they would say, the doctor's at your house again. I noticed actually 3 times this week now. So they would know. So Mrs. Kerwin had an incident, the granny. So she was upstairs pretending to be sick in the room on the left. She wasn't allowed to go to the kitchen, have a cup of tea, a bit of apple tart. There were maids working in the house. There was workmen working in the garden. She couldn't be seen to be okay. She was bad. That's why the doctor's coming. So, but the doctor would come up those stairs, but instead of taking a left to go to Mrs. Kerwin, he took a right to go to Liam. So I said, that's so interesting, I can't wait to see his room. So I put my hand on the door, and Mary Kerwin said, but it's not a bedroom. And I opened the door, and sure enough, it's a library. And I thought, of course, that makes total sense. You're a really impatient person who's kind of annoyed he's out of action. How are you going to keep him quiet for like 2 weeks? And this library is a rare thing from 1840. It's full of like military books about the American Civil War, the Prussian Wars. There's all this military stuff, and as well as The Last of the Mohicans, and some of these books that were written at that time. So that kept him quiet while he was there. And he would have written a letter, Dear Tom is his signature. And this chair, an empty chair, which I suppose you always symbolise when somebody's gone, there's an empty chair. So that's the chair that was upstairs, that's the window of the library, and that's where you would have said you can view into a courtyard, so you can see anyone coming and going from the house from that window, and that's the chair he would have sat on. This is then a gateway in County Waterford, and this is a really interesting house. Bridget Ormond, he was a local historian called Michael Desmond, because they were related by the aunt or grandmother, or yeah. And he brought me to this house, and the house is uninhabited today, but it's full of furniture. It's like somebody was left the house, closed the door, took the key, and walked away. The house is empty, but Liam stayed there only a few days before he died. But I always think that when he reached those gates at Glashire, he must have thought he sanctuary, And she was at Mass on a Sunday morning when Liam had been staying there, and she said, I heard there's going to be a really big roundup, so you must watch out. And he said, don't worry about me, I'll be fine. But 3 days later, he was gone, So then, as you see, we're going. So this is kind of getting to tougher times down here. And then there's a letter here at the end, which would have been given to Liam's mother when, after he was shot in the Knockdown Mountains, he was injured. He was carried down the mountain and brought to a local hostelry bar, and he passed away that evening in Clonmel. But this is a letter to his mother from military HQ. And he died on the 10th, but this is the 12th of the 4th, 23. He died while in custody, so there was an inquest, so that's why the notification about his body is a few days later. And it's to Mrs. Lynch, Anglesborough, and it says, I have been instructed by the GOC to inform you that you are at liberty to remove the body of Liam Lynch for burial. Signed, James Green. But that was it. You can pick him up. That was it. The dispatch bike is an interesting one. That arrived after an event in... So his name was Paddy Ahern, and the bike is not here, but it could be here. It's just that it might come at a later stage. And then this is another letter, Limerick letter, from that time. As I say, they're all done on canvas. This is a folding exhibition, so that in a way they slept under canvas. There's haversacks for canvas. It's a very it's a material, it's a poor material, it's flexible, it's not valuable, you can drop them, they won't break. You know, so, and also you can move fast. This exhibition can be gone in an hour. Before you know. Quills, Gortna Lucra. This was a safe house over the mountain. So coming from there, up over the Cork and Kerry mountains, and you would be heading over past Fermoy to Quills. And the Quill family, that house is just surrounded by forestry now, Quill to forestry. So these houses, in time, they're going to disappear. So they're sort of one of our fragile histories. They're not fabulous stately homes that we value, they're these little invisible places that are just going to fade out. This is another house, Roaches in near Mallow, and bales of hay. Again, this is another Quilcha. It's funny, some of these houses, like really, there was nobody living in them. The sort of coming them on women would leave hay in outhouses and sheds, so anyone on the move that needed hiding or somewhere to sleep would have somewhere to sleep and something to sleep on. So bales of hay would just be left in certain places for people on their own. And then this is another Kerry one, Annie Cronin, and this is Owen O'Shea's book, which she wrote about, you can explain it better, we should have it. And I came across this Annie Cronin, and she was living in Brackhill, which sounds perfect because of the barn brack from Milltown. Maybe that's where it came from, Brackhill. And she made haversacks out of canvas when she put in a pension application. And they said, well, what did you do, Annie, for Ireland? And she said, well, I made haversacks. I hid explosives in the shed underneath turf. So, and she cleaned guns, she also did first aid, and she fed people. And then she said one of the honoured people that she had in that house that she gave a meal to was Liam Lynch. So that house is still there today. And then that is Lombardstown again. All of Liam's letters and dispatches would have had a fake name on the envelope that that could be posted to, and then the real envelope on the inside would be to Liam. So, and that was a drop point because people would be coming and going all the time from a co-op and a shop. You'd expect loads of people to be coming and going, and a stranger wouldn't stand out in a small place. And then these are his glasses. This is a watercolour and charcoal, and these are in the family and relations. It's private archive, but these are the glasses we understand that he was wearing. And also you see the little loop at the bottom, he would have had a little tie that he could secure that on the back of his head as he was running, because his eyesight was not good and he would be lost without his glasses, so he would have worn those. But it's really nice to be sharing this. This is half the exhibition, because the exhibition actually is larger than this, and its venue when it was in Fermoy as part of the Centenary was an old railway building that had been disused for 40 years, but it was a huge building that was like 70 foot long and it had two really big long walls, so we had all the work all the way around. But there's miniature versions of these, because I realised that some people said, oh, I love that, that's my house, or that's this, that and the other. And so there's actually small art print versions of all of the work. I just have a few samples there. But if anyone did know somebody who would be interested in getting a version of these, that they could contact me with my details. But so thanks everyone for coming along and spread the word. The exhibition is on until the 28th of May, Tuesday 28th. And there's two other events. This is the first one. The second one is on Tuesday at 6:45, and the historian Neil Donovan, who's from just outside Fermoy, he's going to do an amazing presentation here, which will be free, about basically the life story and the arc of where Liam Lynch started off, what radicalised him, his journey through life, and the end. So that is Tuesday, and then on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, which is daytime, there's an event called Treasured Letters, which is a project I'm doing with Una Kavanagh Buckley, from people who know the Arbutus Hotel. It was actually Una's grandmother was Madge Clifford, who was actually a secretary to Liam Lynch. So she's going to talk about her archive and her grandfather's notebooks and autograph books that she has researched. And we're asking anyone who has a treasured letter to bring it. And that will be at 2 o'clock on Wednesday the 15th. Neil is on at 6:45 because the library's open late, so we have to be gone by 8. So the talk's at 6:45. Thanks very much.